We've had a couple of updates from Old Trafford this morning. First of all, talks are advancing with Bayern Munich over right-back Noussair Mazraoui. He is keen to join the club and personal terms are not expected to be a problem. Now, his potential arrival could well depend on Wan-Bissaka leaving the club. And while United discuss Mazraoui with Bayern, talks are also open over Matthijs De Ligt. Now, United need to create squad space and budget as well. Victor Lindelof could be key here. United going to the market again in that position is likely to depend on departures rather than the injury sustained by Leny Yoro, right? Let's talk a little bit about United now then. I mentioned that injury there, Yoro injured in that pre-season game against Arsenal. A huge blow, Kwaku, because it's like they've just made this brilliant signing who's got such potential, and then the first game, devastating. It was such a coup for Manchester United as well. It's a player that was heavily linked with Real Madrid. It seemed like he wanted to go to the club and Manchester United managed to convince him to come to United. Paid big money for him and he's got huge potential. He was really good at last season, and the fact that he's got injured in pre-season is devastating to Manchester United, who are looking for a partner alongside Lisandro Martinez. That's what they're looking for. Obviously, Varane's left the club. He's now signed for Como, and so they need that right-sided centre-back, and that was supposed to be Yoro. You mentioned there the other players they're linked with. Mazraoui De Ligt is still only 24 years old, got incredible experience for a player so young. But Yoro's injury is definitely going to be a big blow for Manchester United because he's a player that's comfortable on the ball. He's got some size to him. Of course, he's still very young, and young centre-backs in the Premier League, it tends to take them a little while to get bedded in. But he's a player that has incredible potential, and the fact that they now have to look at other options to replace him, potentially depending on how bad his injury is a big blow to the club. Yeah, he looks so good as well in his first game versus Rangers. I saw so many compilations from United fans just raving about his composure, his speed, and I think it's just unfortunate because they had so many injuries last season and this is like the worst way to start a new season. But at the same time, hopefully it's nothing too long-term and he'll be able to come back straight away. Especially in defense as well. We'll get on to maybe some of those potential incomings in just a moment. But just to talk about some other positive news, Joshua Zirkzee, United fans should be really excited about this signing. Yeah, I mean, he's one of these players that I think for a while, a lot of people have spoken about him a lot. He's been linked to loads of clubs, but he's never actually had a moment or a season where people have gone, oh, this is what he's about. And obviously at Bologna last season, I mean, Thiago Motta did a brilliant job because he unearthed all these gems in this team. And now they're all getting moves away. I think the one thing I do think about a little bit is whether he can coexist with Højlund. So when he first signed, immediately I thought, for me, Højlund felt like for the amount of money they paid, he's got to be the main guy. You've now brought in a guy who they're both similar in a lot of ways. They both want to attack the box. They both want to run beyond. But it's probably the first sign I think United have made under Ten Hag that suits this transition football style. Zirkzee's not going to come and get the ball. He wants to run beyond the last man. Bruno Fernandes is going to pick up and he's going to hit him long. I think that maybe speaks to the identity and the style they want to go for. High-line transition football rather than this heavy possession base, sometimes transition football. Yeah, I also think this is a great sign for Manchester United because who was Højlund's backup last year as a striker? Didn't really have one. Rashford would have to play centrally, so this is a great sign and they can compete for the starting spot. I don't think they can coexist in the same side of XI, but it's a great squad sign for Manchester United, who seem to be going in the right direction. He's a player that has so many great attributes and adheres to the philosophy that Ten Hag's put forward in terms of that transitional football. Didn't play too much in the Euros, but he's a player that's got immense quality and you expect him and Højlund to compete for that starting spot up top. Yeah, makes a really good point. Sam, we were talking about these potential incomings, Mazraoui De Ligt. Obviously, United have been fairly active so far. What are now the key areas that they really need to target? I think it depends on their outgoings. Like we've said, they've got left backs in Shaw and Malacia, but Malasia's been out for a long time due to injury. It'll be interesting to see how he comes back into the fold. But then, when you look into their midfield, obviously Kobbie Mainoo had a great Euros and he was really good for United at the back end of last season. But Casemiro, he's another one. Are we sure of what his future's going to be like? Mason Mount was out with injury. He already seems to be up to speed now. Erik Ten Hag and the players are talking about how well he's doing during pre-season. When you look out wide, what's the future of Sancho? Rashford maybe, but Sancho especially, he's been linked with a few teams. Does his future change how they attack the market for wide players? I think it really depends on the players leaving first, and then United knowing how they do that. Because they don't want to have a position like other windows where they're looking for players, but they struggle to get rid of players. And then they're in a position where they have to just say, yeah, we're happy with the squad that we have, even though we know they're looking on the market. Someone who's definitely staying, Harry Maguire. He's been quite vocal about, look, I'm part of the future of this club. Really upset to miss the back end of last season as well. Missed the FA Cup final, missed the Euros as well. Firstly, let's put some respect on his redemption arc. He was pretty much done, and he became the scapegoat of the club. I think a lot of people said him and Ten Hag fell out. We don't know how much truth is in that. And it felt like the writing was on the wall. Then the back end of last season, the moment he got injured, everyone said, this is the end of Manchester United's season. Without Maguire, who suddenly became this massive, important figure, I don't think they're going to lose him because they don't want to be in a situation like last year. If Lisandro picks up an injury, then you're left with Yoro and Maguire, potentially, or Yoro and Evans. You don't want to put yourself in that situation. And I think also he is actually a very good footballer. And I think people have now regained that respect for him. And I think he's now in a position where he can actually say, I want to stay. Do you think it will be Wan-Bissaka, who's one of these players that United are going to have to get out the door in order to bring other players in? Because it looks like a move to West Ham is likely for him. Yeah, Wan-Bissaka has been a great 7 for Manchester United. We know how good he is defensively. Going forward, he lacks a little bit of something, but for West Ham, that'd be a great sign. And Manchester United, I think it was established that Dalot is their starting right back going forward. He's a player that, on his days, got so much talent and can go forward and create for Manchester United. That's something that Wan-Bissaka can't do. And in modern football, you need your full-backs to be able to attack and give you that impetus out wide. And so he's a player that can garner a decent fee, and you expect him to leave Manchester United this summer and go to a club that's going to be competing for European places. Because he's a player that has got quality, but may not just go in a different direction right now. Do you feel like West Ham would be a good place for him to go? Yeah, I think so. A team that had been in Europe before, they're pushing for those positions. He's got 1 year left on his contracts. Like Kwaku said, it makes sense for both parties because they're looking for other right backs. He's been in a constant position where he's been battling with Dalot, and at some points it's made him better. I think that competition's been healthy. But at the same time, as a player, you want to start week in, week out, gain confidence and get better. The player we saw at Palace, we were raving about him and how good he is, even going forward at times as well, but defensively, one of the best 1-versus-1 defenders. So I'd like to see that week in, week out again. Before we move on, by the way, a word on David De Ligt, who is still a free agent. Doesn't look like he's going to Genoa, does it? But it's all linked to the wage demands. I don't know what's going on. We were literally speaking on the phone saying, bear in mind we were talking about this guy being a Premier League great, can't get a club, or is he just being too picky about the club that he, potentially, but how many years has he got left to play? That would be my question. Is he going to eventually settle back in Spain? I thought he might have just gone home, potentially gone home for a year. He's stayed in Manchester, hasn't he? Yeah, but Man City weren't going to sign him. It's a really strange scenario. We've never seen it before in terms of a player of this much quality. I know the last couple of years Manchester United maybe tarnished that a little bit, but he's one of the greatest Premier League goalkeepers of all time. If you look at his resume and the fact that he's been without a club, it's now going to be 2 seasons, it doesn't make any sense. There must be something awry when it comes to maybe his wage demands, or maybe football's gone in a different direction. He's not necessarily the most comfortable with the ball at his feet, but still, he's a good goalkeeper. I think he's just waiting for that perfect move because it's most likely going to be his last move. We've never seen it before, but a fair player, if he wants to bide his time and say, yeah, I want to make sure the club is perfect for what I want, then we'll wait and see where he goes.